On a bitterly cold Christmas Eve in 1945, the Sodder family went to bed in their cozy West Virginia home, their minds filled with thoughts of tomorrow's celebrations. 5 of their children fell asleep, dreaming of presents and holiday cheer, completely unaware that this would be their last known night on Earth. By dawn, they would vanish without a trace, launching one of America's most baffling and heartbreaking mysteries. Was it a devastating accident that claimed 5 young lives, or something far more sinister? Today, we're diving deep into the haunting case that would torment a family for generations. Welcome back to Humanity Tales, where we explore stories that challenge our understanding of human nature and remind us that truth can indeed be stranger than fiction. If you're new here, make sure to hit that subscribe button and notification bell, because the story you're about to hear is one that will stay with you long after it's over. Picture this: Fayetteville, West Virginia, 1945. World War II had just ended, and America was embracing a new era of peace and prosperity. In this small coal mining town, where church bells rang on Sundays and neighbors knew each other by name, the Sodder family had built their version of the American dream. George Sodder, an Italian immigrant who had arrived in America as a young boy, had worked his way up from nothing to become a successful coal truck operator. His wife Jenny, also an Italian immigrant, was known throughout the community for her warm heart and excellent cooking. Together, they had created a beautiful life, raising 10 children in a 2-story house that stood proudly on a hillside overlooking the town. George was particularly proud of his accomplishments. Despite starting with nothing, he had built a profitable business, owned several trucks, and provided his large family with all the comforts of middle-class American life. Their home was modern by 1945 standards, equipped with electric lights and a coal-burning stove. The children were well-educated, well-dressed, and well-loved. To outsiders, the Sodders seemed to be living a perfect life. But in the months leading up to that fateful Christmas, strange and unsettling incidents began to cast shadows over their happiness. It started with a life insurance salesman who visited their home in the fall of 1945. When George firmly rejected his sales pitch, the man's friendly demeanor suddenly changed. He made an ominous prediction that would later seem prophetic. "Your house will go up in smoke," he warned, "and your children will be destroyed." He added cryptically that this would happen because of the dirty remarks George had made about Italian dictator Benito Mussolini. This wasn't an idle threat to George, who was known in the community for his outspoken criticism of Mussolini's regime. As an Italian-American who loved his adopted country deeply, he had been vocal about his opposition to fascism, something that had already caused tension with some members of the local Italian-American community. The strange incidents didn't stop there. The Sodder children began reporting unusual observations to their parents. They noticed a man watching them from the highway as they returned home from school. Unfamiliar cars would slow down as they passed the house, their occupants studying the property with unsettling interest. Late-night phone calls disrupted their peace, only to reveal silence or strange laughter on the other end when answered. 2 months before Christmas, George noticed something else troubling. A stranger had appeared at the house, asking about hauling work. While walking around the property, this man had made his way to the fuse box and commented, "This is going to cause a fire someday." George, who had recently had the wiring checked and approved by the power company, dismissed the warning at the time. If you're already feeling the tension building in this story, make sure to give this video a thumbs up. Trust me, what comes next will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about this seemingly simple tragedy. The final warning came just a week before Christmas. The younger Sodder children told their mother about a strange incident they had witnessed. They had seen people in a car parked along the highway, watching their house and laughing. The children said they could see the observers taking photos of their home. Jenny tried to reassure them, suggesting they had imagined it. But in light of what was about to happen, these incidents would take on a far more sinister significance. The Sodders tried their best to brush aside these disturbing events. After all, Christmas was coming, and they wanted to focus on creating happy memories with their children. Marion, their 17-year-old daughter, had just gotten a new job at a dime store, and she was excited about buying presents for her younger siblings. The house was filled with the typical chaos and joy of a large family preparing for the holidays. Nobody could have predicted that these seemingly random events were about to become crucial pieces of evidence in one of America's most enduring mysteries. On December 24, 1945, the Sodder household was alive with Christmas excitement. The younger children, Maurice, 14, Martha, 12, Louis, 9, Jenny, 8, and Betty, 5, were especially animated, begging to stay up past their usual bedtime. Their mother had decorated the house beautifully, and presents were wrapped and ready under the tree. Marion, the 17-year-old, had bought small gifts for her younger siblings with her first paycheck from the dime store, and she let them each open one early that evening. The night started normally enough. Jenny had to repeatedly urge the younger children to go to bed, as they were too excited about Christmas morning to want to sleep. The older children helped put the younger ones to bed around 10:30 p.m., though the little ones pleaded for just a few more minutes of Christmas Eve magic. Two of the older sons, John, 23, and George Jr., 16, weren't home that night, working late at a nearby auto shop. Another sister, Sylvia, 2, was staying with family friends for the holiday. Before going to bed herself, Jenny made her usual rounds, checking on the children and making sure everything was secure for the night. She noticed that Marion had fallen asleep on the couch downstairs, still wearing her pretty Christmas dress. The lights on the tree twinkled in the darkness, and all seemed peaceful. At approximately 1:00 a.m., Jenny was awakened by the sound of something hitting the roof with a loud thump. The noise was distinct enough to rouse her from sleep, but after listening for a few moments and hearing nothing else, she convinced herself it was probably just something blown by the wind. She got up, checked around, and finding nothing obviously amiss, went back to bed. Half an hour later, at around 1:30 a.m., she woke again. This time, it was the smell of smoke that jolted her to consciousness. As she became fully awake, she noticed the air was getting thick with it. The next few moments would become a nightmare that would haunt the surviving family members for the rest of their lives. Smoke was now pouring into the house at an alarming rate. Jenny screamed for her children, her voice filled with panic. She rushed to wake Marion, who was still asleep on the couch downstairs. George, who had also been awakened by the smoke, began trying to organize an evacuation. Marion managed to run out with her 2 younger brothers, while George and Jenny escaped with 2 more of their children. But 5 of them, Maurice, Martha, Louis, Jenny, and Betty, were nowhere to be seen. They had been sleeping in upstairs bedrooms, and in the chaos of the moment, nobody could reach them. The smoke was getting thicker by the second, and flames were now visible, spreading with terrifying speed. If you're on the edge of your seat, wondering why nobody could save these children, hold on, because this is where the mystery takes an even darker turn. George Sodder's first instinct was to reach his children through the upstairs windows. He ran to get his ladder, which was always kept leaning against the house. But in a twist that would later seem suspicious, the ladder was missing. Not knocked over, not moved slightly, completely gone from the property. Desperate, he then tried to drive one of his coal trucks up to the house, planning to climb onto its roof to reach the upper windows. But despite having worked perfectly the day before, none of his trucks would start. Not one. It was as if everything that could have helped save the children had been systematically sabotaged. The water barrel they kept for emergencies was frozen solid in the cold December night. By the time the fire department arrived, nearly 7 hours later, despite the fire station being just 2.5 miles away, the house had burned to the ground. The Sodders stood in the pre-dawn darkness, watching helplessly as their home was reduced to ashes, praying for any sign of their 5 missing children. The fire's ferocity was shocking. Witnesses said it seemed to burn unnaturally hot and fast, with flames shooting high into the night sky. Some even reported seeing unusual balls of fire being thrown onto the roof of the house. The timing and circumstances were suspicious enough, but what happened next would transform this tragedy into one of America's most enduring mysteries. The official investigation began on Christmas morning. but it was rushed and plagued with inconsistencies from the start. Fire Chief F.J. Morris initially concluded that the fire was caused by faulty wiring, suggesting that the children had been cremated in the intense heat. But this explanation would soon crumble under scrutiny, revealing layers of troubling evidence that would haunt investigators for decades. The first red flag was the complete absence of human remains. In the aftermath of the fire, searchers found no bones or other physical evidence that 5 children had perished in the blaze. This fact would later become crucial when multiple fire experts testified that even a fire burning at 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit for 2 hours should have left skeletal remains. The human body requires temperatures of over 2,000 degrees sustained for several hours to be completely cremated, and even then, some bone fragments typically survive. If you're wondering how this crucial detail was initially overlooked, stay with me. The investigation gets even more mysterious. The Sodders, driven by their growing suspicions, hired private investigator C.C. Tinsley to look into the case. What he uncovered was deeply disturbing. The state fire marshal's investigation had been suspiciously brief, and key evidence had been ignored or destroyed. Tinsley discovered that the insurance salesman who had threatened George Sodder months earlier was actually a member of the coroner's jury that deemed the fire accidental. In 1949, the family made a shocking discovery that would reignite the investigation. While sifting through the dirt at the fire site, they found a small rubber object that appeared to be a human liver. They immediately sent it to a laboratory for testing, hoping it would finally provide answers about their children's fate. The results were stunning. The object was not human tissue at all, but rather a piece of rubber that appeared to have been deliberately planted at the site. More bizarre evidence continued to surface. Multiple witnesses came forward with accounts that challenged the official narrative. A woman at a tourist stop in Charleston, West Virginia, claimed she had served breakfast to children matching the Sodder Children's descriptions on Christmas morning. She said the children were accompanied by adults who wouldn't let them speak to anyone and appeared nervous and controlling. A hotel keeper in a nearby town reported seeing the children about a week after the fire. She said they were accompanied by 2 men and 2 women of Italian extraction, and the group had checked in around midnight but left before dawn. Perhaps most intriguingly, a woman claimed she saw the children in a passing car while the house was in flames. This testimony aligned with another witness who reported seeing strange cars on the road near the Sodder home during the early hours of Christmas morning. If these witness accounts are making you question everything about this case, hit that like button, because the most compelling evidence was yet to come. In 1968, over 20 years after the fire, Jenny Sodder received an envelope in the mail. Inside was a photograph that would reignite the family's hope and deepen the mystery simultaneously. The photo showed a young man in his mid-30s who bore a striking resemblance to how their son Louis might have looked at that age. On the back was written, "Louis Sodder, I love brother Frankie, Ilil Boys, A90132. The postmark indicated it had been mailed from Kentucky. The family hired yet another private investigator to track down the origin of the photograph. But after traveling to Kentucky, the investigator disappeared. He never contacted the family again, adding another layer of mystery to the already complex case. A deeper investigation into the events surrounding the fire revealed more suspicious circumstances. The telephone lines to the house had been cut, not burned, preventing the family from calling for help immediately. A witness reported seeing someone carrying a block and tackle type of equipment near the house before the fire. This could explain how the ladder disappeared. The fire department, despite being only 2.5 miles away, didn't respond until 8 a.m., claiming they couldn't be reached and had trouble finding the house, despite it being a well-known property in the small town. Several people reported seeing a man at a local tavern the night of the fire, claiming that the Sodder children would soon be taken care of. As decades passed, the mystery of the Sodder children only seemed to deepen. George and Jenny Sodder never gave up their search, dedicating their lives and resources to finding answers. In 1952, they erected a billboard near the fire site, featuring photographs of their 5 missing children, and offering a $10,000 reward for information. The billboard stood for almost 40 years, a stark reminder of the unresolved tragedy that had forever changed their community. Before we explore the theories about what really happened that night, take a moment to subscribe to Humanity Tales if you want to hear more stories that challenge our understanding of human nature. Several theories have emerged over the years to explain the children's disappearance. The mafia connection theory suggests that the children were kidnapped as retribution for George Sodder's outspoken criticism of Mussolini and the Italian fascist government. This theory is supported by several facts. George had emigrated from Italy and was vocal about his anti-Mussolini views. The family had received threats related to these political statements. Several witnesses reported seeing Italian-speaking men in the area before and during the fire. The sophisticated nature of the sabotage, cut phone lines, disabled trucks, missing ladder, suggests an organized operation. The human trafficking theory proposes that the children were targeted for an organized kidnapping operation. The multiple sightings of the children after the fire, the strange photograph received in 1968, reports of suspicious vehicles and people watching the house, the precise timing and execution of the fire as a cover-up. Some researchers have suggested government involvement, pointing to the inadequate investigation and strange behavior of local authorities. The fire chief's rushed conclusion, the missing ladder that was never found, the delayed response from emergency services, the disappearance of the private investigator in Kentucky. What do you think happened that night? Share your theories in the comments below. Could it have been a tragic accident, or was there something more sinister at play? George Sodder passed away in 1969, still searching for answers. Jenny continued the search until her death in 1989, wearing black in mourning for the rest of her life. The last surviving Sodder child, Sylvia, who was staying with relatives the night of the fire, passed away in 2021 at the age of 79. She had spent her entire life searching for the truth about her siblings' disappearance. Today, the case continues to captivate new generations of mystery enthusiasts and amateur sleuths. The combination of suspicious circumstances, political undertones, and the complete lack of physical remains makes it one of America's most enduring unsolved mysteries. If this story touched you as deeply as it touched me, make sure to give this video a thumbs up and share it with someone who appreciates true mysteries. Don't forget to subscribe to Humanity Tales for more stories that challenge our understanding of human nature. Until next time, remember that some mysteries remind us that truth can be stranger than fiction, and that a parent's love knows no bounds. The Sodder children may have vanished without a trace, but their story continues to remind us of the importance of never giving up in the search for truth. Subscribe for more compelling stories of mystery, resilience, and human nature.